passengers treat the flight attendants. But what if someone gets really out of hand? What if it threatens the flight? Listen to one pilot's uncompromising position.
My single determination is safety of flight. If I feel a situation is out of control, then I'll put the airplane down.
That is exactly what Captain Rick Leslie of American Airlines did in April for the first time in his 17-year career. En route to Miami from Paris, he made a rare, unscheduled landing in Boston. Not because of mechanical problems or bad weather or even a hijacking. He set down the plane 1,200 miles from its destination because of what he saw in the main cabin.
If I have to unbuckle myself from the cockpit and go back and deal with an unruly passenger, that's very serious. That's not my job in the air at all. I don't have time to do that. It's not safe.
At 40,000 feet above the earth, leaving the controls is something captains are reluctant to do. But it's happening more frequently as they are forced to deal with passengers lashing out at crews. Flight attendants tell these shocking tales of combat above the clouds.
I felt a stinging sensation on my left buttock, and I had been literally thrown about 2 rows into coach from his open-handed slap.
He just started beating me about the head and the back and the shoulders, and getting hit in the ear a lot. I remember it was like right, left, right, left, right, left.
She was deplaning the aircraft, walked up and said, "You're a real bitch." And as she said, "Bitch," I saw the fist coming up, and she hit me in the face, cut my face with her ring.
Well, I think it's outrageous. I don't think people should feel free to be rude or physically offensive in any way to our people. It simply is inexcusable.
Ann McNamara is the senior vice president of American Airlines, one of the only industry officials who agreed to go on camera about this very sensitive issue. She says the number of assaults in the air on American has skyrocketed from 30 in 1994 to 140 last year. And she says the number of passengers threatening or interfering with crew members' abilities to do their duty is even more alarming.
And in '95, it jumped up to almost 900.
900?
900.
Why do you think this is happening?
I think people may think that they're in no man's land in the air where they can act out with impunity.
It's hard to believe that Gerard Finneran was thinking at all when he did the things that got him arrested, returning to New York from Buenos Aires. It was 2 hours into the United flight. The crew had decided to stop serving him alcohol. William Londeros was one of the flight attendants.
He said, I'm going to bust you on your butt. I'm going to bust you on your ass. And he walked towards me, making a fist, and I stood back. And I said, no, sir, I'm sorry. But as far as I'm concerned, you're not getting another drop of alcohol.
Flight attendant Frank Annunziata picks up the rest of this bizarre tale.
I saw him, and he basically just started to take his pants off, walking toward me.
I saw him urinating, sitting down on the service card. So I told Frank, I said, Frank, this man is urinating here. Bring a blanket.
He was sitting on the serving cart that we have, that we set up for the first class presentation, and he was relieving himself.
At the same time, I was talking to the man and saying, sir, this is not a bathroom. This is not a bathroom. A few seconds later, you could smell that he was not just, he was just not urinating, but also defecating.
Within hours of the plane's landing, the gross incident became national news. The story seemed so offensive, it sounded like an isolated episode. But there have been other recent headlines about hostilities in the skies.
I am a very good customer of American Airlines. They know me very well. I'm a VIP person.
I'm a very frequent traveler. I travel to Tokyo, Korea, Japan, America 14 times only this year.
They may sound like good customers, but these very frequent flyers, Regine Choucroun, owner of a chain of nightclubs, and her son, Lionel Rotkaj, were the reason that Captain Rick Leslie took the extraordinary step of making that unscheduled Boston landing back in April. It began with the puff of a cigarette.
Fire on board an aircraft is what I fear the most.
I've never been stopped of smoking, standing up in a smoking section. Never.
Although Rotkaj may have thought he was in the smoking section, he was actually standing in an area near the smoking section. That's where he was first approached by a flight attendant.
And she leans on me, agitating her finger at that from my nose, and she says to me, "The captain has told me to tell you that you're not allowed to smoke again on the flight." That close from me. And I am answering her, "Stop threatening me."
It sounds like a schoolyard fight, not a major incident.
You can trivialize almost any incident. The fact is that people are flying at 30-odd thousand feet in the air in a very small, contained space. And there's someone behaving in a way that seems irrational to our people. They're then forced to decide whether or not that person's behavior may get worse.
According to reports filed by the flight crew, Rotkaj went berserk and was very agitated. It is also alleged that his mother became abusive and that he also assaulted and threatened the flight crew. Then the captain had words with him.
He says, "I've heard that you've threatened my crew." And I'm telling him, "Are you joking?"
The captain didn't consider it a joke. Instead, he radioed ahead for FBI agents and state police to meet the plane. They arrested Regine and her son on the spot. The charges? Assaulting and intimidating a flight crew and interfering with their ability to perform their duties.
Captain Leslie's swift action reflects the cardinal rule of airline authority. On board, the captain is in command. Disruptive passengers can be restrained or even handcuffed. Keep in mind, assaulting, threatening, or interfering with the flight crew is a federal offense.
It's a far cry from the way travelers used to treat the folks who served as custodians of their adventure in the air. In the early days, some airlines boasted their cabin crews, or sky girls, were all registered nurses. Flying was an event. Stewardesses were highly respected.
Taking a flight, I'll be doing it right.
The airlines themselves helped change that image with commercials that seemed more suitable for a singles bar than a business trip.
I'm Jennifer, and I'm gonna fly you like you've never been flown before.
But as the industry grew and the stereotypes faded, cabin crews, no longer just sexy stews, settled into the no-nonsense business of just getting the job done, which more and more is getting harder and harder to do.
And all of a sudden I realized he was urinating on the seat.
We gathered a group of flight attendants with more than 100 combined years of experience to hear some of their stories, ranging from boorish rudeness to downright abuse.
He was a businessman, pretty well dressed, and you are so shocked you just don't know what to say. And he turned around and he goes, "Well, the bathrooms were occupied." So then it became my fault, so he wanted to ruin my seat.
Celeste Garrison told us about a woman who literally screamed at her when she wouldn't allow her to carry her dog on board. And then...
And I did something that I've never done since then. I turned my back. And she said, "Oh, by the way, this is for you." And when I turned around to face her again, she hopped and spit right in my face.
The passenger had asked me for another sandwich, and I told her that we didn't have one, and she became very angry, jumped right in my face with her fingernails. At the same time, she's reaching around the other flight attendant and grabbed me by my hair again and had me backwards over a seat.
All this just because you wouldn't give her another sandwich?
Correct.
And you faggot, you don't talk to me that way, and hauled off and took a swing and ended up hitting me across the right shoulder.
She was so upset she started fighting with the passenger. I moved her to first class where no one was sitting so that she could be alone. She went into the lavatory on landing and stayed there until we landed because I couldn't get her out, broke her arm in the lavatory, kicked a hole through the wall.
Your stories are pretty horrible. A lot of your stories are pretty horrible. Is it worse today than it has been in the past?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Much worse?
Yes.
I think so.
People just go ballistic if something doesn't happen the way they anticipate it to happen. And it's often no fault of the flight attendant. We do not schedule the airline. We do not schedule the weather to go down.
You will see passengers virtually go berserk more than they will in any other part of their lives.
Marty Salfin is the Senior Vice President of the International Airline Passengers Association. He thinks the airlines are in part to blame for passenger frustration.
You go to the ticket counter, there's a line at the ticket counter. You wait to board, there's a line to get on the airplane. Meal service is not what it was several years ago. And now you're on a full airplane, and you have less flight attendants.
Do you think that crowded airplanes, possibly a decrease in service, has contributed at all to passengers' frustrations in terms of the increase of these incidents?
Lynn, I really don't think so. I think life is full of frustrations. That doesn't mean you can assault people.
United flight attendant Graham Spady was beaten up by a passenger Spady says got off easy.
To spend one evening in jail and get 6 months unsupervised probation for beating someone up, to me it's like being sent to the principal's office. You know, no big deal.
Spady has been grounded by his assailant and says he doesn't know when he'll be healthy enough to return to work. Meanwhile, his attacker, Gerald Theriot, after pleading guilty to a felony, is on unsupervised probation for 6 months in Germany. He paid no fine. That's not always the case. Remember Gerard Finneran, the man who used the serving cart as a bathroom? He pled guilty to an assault and paid $50,000 in restitution to United, $5,000 in fines, and is on probation for 2 years.
No, Billy, don't hit anybody. We're walking calmly to the car.
He also apologized to the flight attendant for his verbal threat. As for that case where American Airlines made the unscheduled landing, charges were dropped against Regine, but her son, Lionel Rotkaj, was indicted by a grand jury and faces trial. The maximum penalty is 20 years in jail and a $250,000 fine. He has pled not guilty. Besides supporting its crew in the Rotkaj incident, American Airlines wants future passengers to know that if they act up on their aircraft, they will be facing prosecution too. And that, say flight attendants, is a welcome change.
Did American not take this seriously in the past? Were you not so supportive of your crews?
I think it's fair to say we weren't as supportive in the past as we are today. I think we were perhaps caught up in the theory of the customer is always right. And we finally decided that there are some customers whose business we just don't want.
Flight attendants do work so hard, and I fly a lot, and sometimes I get frustrated. You know, the planes are late and this and that, and you take it out on the flight attendant.
Well, it's true. You know why? We get on the plane and we voluntarily surrender control, and with some people that means they go out of control. Another thing, you know, the flight attendants told us is that with airfares generally lower, more people are flying who don't know how to behave on planes.
That's true, and cramped space.
Right.
So are the airlines doing anything about this?
Yes, indeed. Barbara, at least 2 airlines have started training programs, role-playing, to get the flight attendants to know how to deal with these. And American Airlines is lobbying for stricter enforcement of the existing laws so that something will happen to people who misbehave on planes.
Well, all of us, even if we don't misbehave, should remember how hard they do work.
I agree with you.
Thank you, Lynn.
Well, next, new and